The idea of higher education for Black and brown young women was not really considered acceptable by the polite white society of the time. African American women, even born free and in the North, were not considered citizens of the United States or of the states in which they resided. So that limited their education opportunities, their professional opportunities, and they could experience state-sanctioned violence, which is what occurred here. So when Crandall agrees to admit Sarah Harris as a full-time student equally with the white students, she doesn't expect it to become as momentous as it is. The local community does try to get her to expel Sarah Harris. And she refuses to do so. However, when the parents of the white students put pressure financially on her by withdrawing their daughters from the school, and she's not able to financially sustain the school, she realizes that she has to make another choice. She closes down the school for white students and opens solely for young African American students. And her students are coming from out of state. So that is really, I think, the really radical decision that she makes. Crandall versus Connecticut in 1834 becomes the first systemic U.S. court case of citizenship for African Americans in the history of the United States. Her opposition, the prosecution, is arguing very simply that there was a law, she broke it, and there should be consequences in their goal to close the school down. Her attorneys instead are using this as an opportunity to argue for Black citizenship. Everyone involved in this story is working together to provide access, to provide equality to everyone. And I think that in and of itself is an excellent example of everyone working toward democracy, right? To widening what we the people mean. And I don't think it is a nebulous statement, right? We the people means everyone. We should all have that right to, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And I think that that's what we see happening here, where we're expanding that to include everyone. Everyone used their place of privilege or lack of privilege, right? Where Sarah Harris's privilege was only to have that courage to ask to go to school here. She was the least privileged person in society, right, as a young Black woman. To people like Arthur Tappan, who was extremely wealthy. He was a white abolitionist from New York State, and he uses a lot of that privilege that he has as a very wealthy white man to help fund what is happening here. He's part of the group of people that puts that bond down to the school. He's also helping fund the defense. So you're seeing anyone here involved in supporting this story using the privilege that they have to help further education for everyone.
So I think we've come so far that we forget, everybody has access to education these days. And I think that we forget that that wasn't always the case. I think that that's important when you're talking about education, to remember kind of how far we've come and that we're very privileged here in this country. And it wasn't always like that. That one act of Prudence Crandall standing up and doing what was right and teaching others had a ripple effect really across the entire nation. And those people that she taught then took their education and went out and taught others.
I think that we can take that lesson of Prudence and apply it to today. And that if we feel strongly that we have to stand up for our beliefs and our values, that we can't sit there and allow the societal racial constructs at the time to sort of determine how you're going to act. If you believe strongly, stand up and act for your beliefs, act for your values. You need to, if you're in a position of power, if you're an elected official, a municipal official at this local, state, federal level, you need that courage of your convictions, and you You need to understand that while sometimes your decisions might not be popular, if you have that courage, your convictions, you must stick with that. Prudence, I give her credit because she went up against. If you think about it, in 1830, what she did, that took a lot. She put her life at risk. She took what was, I argue, as I said, a very comfortable existence, and she jeopardized that, for what she believed in, and that's important. So you can't sit there. I guess to use it, the expression, sometimes you can't go with the flow. Sometimes you have to swim against the current. My perspective on this, and looking at American history coming to 250, is that we have this bad habit of mythologizing our history, and I think it's important that we actually take a look at our history through an open lens and be honest with the American past, because only by accepting the past and the actions that were taken can you understand how you can build better for the future. So to look at the society from 1830, to look at what one person did in her fight to make it a better society, that's important, and that we have to understand that. So as we look forward at 250, as we look forward to the next 250, we need to understand where we came from and how we got here.